Today we'll be taking a look at modifying your Epicor default reports as well as the report data definition. In order to start, I've decided that for my goal I'm going to make a change to the AR invoice form, and that on it I want it to print out the plant information from the invoice head table. So the first step that I've got to address is making sure that data is available on the report. In order to do that, I'm going to have to open up my report data definition or report data maintenance, and I've already gone to the AR invoice data definition. If I go over to report tables and scroll down, I can see plant is already marked as being excluded. Well, I want to uncheck that, but I can't because this is one of the Epicor system defaults. Instead, I'll go to Actions and duplicate my report. This will create a duplicate of the base AR invoice form data definition. From there, I can modify it. So let's give it the simple name of AR demo. So now that it's finished creating my duplicate, if we go to our detail, we can see that it now has the AR demo name as well as demo for Lunch and Learn. Let's go ahead and expand our report table and find our invoice head table. Once we click on it, we'll be able to switch over to the exclusions and look at more information there. Now we can go to the report table and see all of our exclusions, except this time, once I go down to plant, I can now uncheck this exclude column. Now the difference between exclude column and exclude label is that the column contains the actual data within the database. The label is if instead of hard coding or typing your label information, you want to use the Epicor system default. I personally don't like using the labels. I find that just typing the information in is more efficient, and the more labels you include, actually the slower your processing time for your reports. So I'm just going to leave this checked to keep that out of there. Now I'll save my data definition, and once that's saved, I'm done with everything I need to do here. Next, let's go to our report style maintenance. When we're in report style, we'll have to pull up our AR form report style. Then we can expand on the left to see what all exists. We'll start with the default one because I want to make a modification to that anyway. In here, we can see the report location as well as what data definition is currently using. For this, I'll create a copy of the standard SSRS report style. In order to do that, I'll go to New, Report Style. First, I'll start by changing from my AR form to AR demo. Now that I've got that in there, I need to put in a description. And I should be able to save. Now we'll copy information from the main one down so we have the same general setup. By saying the output location is database, this means that Epicor will be creating a table within the actual Epicor reports database that will contain all the fields that are output. Now we can save again and go to our AR form report. Here I have my form, but as we should already know, plant is going to be listed over here, so we need to make a couple of small changes. First, let's shrink these down so we can see easier. Once we've shrunken them down, we'll go into the dataset properties and then into the expression over here. As we can see, the query is represented by an expression. If you're just modifying a default form, you shouldn't need to change any of these items. In here we will see a lot of information, but I'll help you filter it down to what you really need to know. Start by going all the way to the bottom. This is where your table listings are. Now this information might not be the easiest to read, so sometimes copying out to Notepad can help. But here we see the term invoice head, which is the table we're trying to get our new field from. After that, we see the parameters, and this is the name of the table that Epicor is going to create within the reports database. So it would be invoice head plus whatever this GUID is going to be. Then finally we see T1, which tells us that everything for the invoice head is pulling from a new table called T1 because it has been aliased. So if we go up to the top, we'll see some of these T1 items. So T1 company, that means we're getting the company from the invoice head. So now I want to add my new field. So all I need to do is say T1 dot plant and add in a comma to keep everything separate. And now I can click OK and save my report. Now if we just ran this, we'd run into some problems because it's trying to pull plant. So instead, we're going to run a demo of the report and grab the GUID. So let's go into our AR invoice entry. And I've pulled up a group already that has an invoice in it. So we'll go Actions, Invoice, Print Invoice. Here, we want to change our report style to the Lunch and Learn demo. Then, we'll just do a print preview. It'll run a little faster, and I don't have to print out any actual paper. Once we've clicked Print Preview, we'll go into the System Monitor, make sure we don't run into any errors, and then wait for the report to generate. We can see the report generated in the background, and now we can see the report that I've run at 10:38 a.m., which matches our system clock. So all I need to do is scroll all the way to the right, and we see this report database. If we scroll a little bit further, we can see this string of characters, both numbers and letters. This is referred to as the GUID, and this information is how the report knows which table to pull from when it runs. Now, we can close this invoice in the background. It looks fine, but we don't have our plant information on it. So, let's now go back to our report with our GUID copied from that information. And because I want to do several tests, I'm going to go into the table GUID here, which is our parameter, say that it has a default value, and that default value is going to be our GUID. Now, every time I click Run in the upper left-hand corner, instead of having to type in any information, it'll take whatever the default is and display that. That saves a lot of time in development. Next, we're going to add an item. Now, if we scroll down in the AR invoice head, we'll see the plant still isn't quite in there. How do we add it? Well, we'll go to AR Inform, Dataset Properties, Fields, and then we can see this is a listing of all the fields that have been added. So we want to add a query field, which means we're getting it from that expression. Simple. All you need to do is put in your column name and click OK. Now the report believes that there will be a plant value coming every time. Next, we're going to add a piece of information up here, insert a text box, and for the expression of that text box, we're going to say we're getting from the dataset of AR form. Remember, that's the one we modified. And we're going to get the first plant value. That means if we're doing iterations or multiple reports, like this is an invoice where we might have multiple customers with multiple plants or anything like that, it'll cycle through a new plant every time that it hits one. So let's run it and see how it looks. Here we go. We see our MFG Sys. That's our default plant. So we'll go back. I want to make a couple of changes now. I want to bold that information. I also want to make it a slightly larger font. Now I'm going to actually change one more property that most of you won't notice right away, but it'll actually help you out a lot for aligning your information. If we went with the way it is, the information is going to float a little bit lower than the top of the box and a little bit to the right of the left of the box. In order to change that, we're going to change the padding. Now, unfortunately, SSRS will always put in a 2-point padding by default. In order to fix that, we're just going to go into the Properties, Padding, and now our field is seated nicely to the top and left, which will make it a lot easier to align in the long run. Now, once again, Home, Run, and there is our new MFG Sys, larger than before and in bold. We'll save it, and now we should be ready to run it within Epicor. Once again, we'll go back to our AR invoice, Action, Invoice, Print Invoices. Finally, we make sure we have the correct report style, and click Print Preview. Here it is, our new MFG Sys added to the report. Now obviously this was a very simple example and probably not one most of you will use. However, this is to give you an idea of the system and styles of how to update information for your reports. This is just a beginning because outside of Epicor system reports, you can also create your own SSRS reports from scratch using stored procedures. Thanks for watching.